The survey ship moved slowly through the dark space, its engines quiet like it did not want to disturb anything. It was a large ship, built by the Orion Union, one of the most powerful alliances in the galaxy. The Union had explored thousands of star systems, and their records were trusted everywhere. They did not make mistakes. And their record said one simple thing about the planet below: dead. No life. No energy, no activity, just another forgotten world. The planet had no real name, only a code, XK-117. From far away, it looked gray and empty. Clouds covered parts of it, but they did not move like normal clouds. The surface was broken, filled with cracks and dust. It looked like something had happened there a very long time ago. Something big. Commander Ralvik stood at the front of the bridge, his hands behind his back. His tall figure was still, but his eyes were focused on the planet. "Final scan report," he said in a calm voice. A crew member looked at the screen and replied, "No life signs detected. No active systems. No signals. The planet is completely inactive." Another officer added, "Atmosphere is thin but stable. Radiation levels are low. Nothing unusual." Ralvik stayed silent for a moment. Everything sounded normal. Too normal. "Run the scan again," he said. The crew exchanged quick looks. "It's already confirmed." "Commander," one of them said carefully. "There is nothing there." Ralvik did not look at him. His eyes stayed on the planet. "Run it again." This time no one argued. The scanners swept across the planet once more. Lines of data filled the screens. Numbers moved. Signals were checked again and again. Then a small flicker. "Wait," one officer said. Everyone turned. "What is it?" Ralvik asked. I think I saw something," the officer replied, unsure. "Just for a second." "A signal spike. Source?" "Surface level. Maybe below it, maybe," Ralvik repeated. The officer swallowed. "It's gone now. Everything is normal again." Silence filled the bridge. One of the crew members gave a small laugh. "Probably interference. This system has a lot of dust particles." Another nodded. "Yes, nothing to worry about." But Ralvik did not smile. He had done this job for many cycles. He had seen broken worlds, destroyed civilizations, and empty systems. But something about this planet felt wrong. Still, orders were orders. "We will proceed," he said. "Prepare a landing team." The shuttle dropped through the thin atmosphere of XK-117. Dust clouds moved slowly below them. The sky was dim, colored in pale gray and soft orange. There was no sun visible, only a weak light coming through the thick haze. Inside the shuttle, the landing team sat quietly. No one joked. No one. "Relaxed. This place feels strange," one soldier said softly. "Dead planets always feel strange," another replied. But even he did not sound convinced. Phew. Shuttle landed with a low thud. Outside, the world was silent. The door opened. A cold, dry wind touched their faces. They stepped out, their boots pressed into fine dust that had not been moved for a very long time. In front of them stood the ruins of a city, tall structures, broken and half buried. Walls cracked open, towers cut in half like they had been destroyed in a single moment. "This is not natural," one of the scientists said, looking around. Ralvik stepped forward. "Explain." She walked to a nearby structure and touched its surface. "This damage, it's not from time," she said slowly. "It's like everything stopped at once. No long decay, no slow collapse." Another crew member scanned the ground. "Materials are advanced," he said. "Not primitive. This was a developed civilization." Ralvik looked around the empty streets. "No bodies," he said. The team noticed it too. "No remains. No signs of life ending, just empty. Where did they go?" Someone whispered. No one answered. Then a low vibration. It was weak, but clear. Everyone froze. "Did you feel that?" a soldier asked. The ground shook again just for a second. Dust lifted slightly into the air, then settled again. "It's probably just tectonic movement," one of them said quickly. "Yes, natural shifting," another added, but their voices were not steady. Ralvik slowly looked down at the ground. The dust near his feet moved, just a little, like something had shifted far below. "Commander," a voice came through the comms from the ship above. "We are detecting small energy fluctuations." Ralvik's eyes narrowed. "Source?" "Unclear. It's very deep under the surface, that was enough. All teams, return to the shuttle, he ordered. The group turned quickly, but before they could move far, the ground cracked. A sharp sound echoed across the ruins. A long line split open in the earth. Running through the street, dust fell into the darkness below. The crack grew wider, and then something moved, deep inside the ground, far below them. A faint blue light appeared. It was small at first, then brighter, then stronger. The team stepped back. "What is that?" Someone whispered. The ground began to rise, not shake, rise like something massive was pushing up from below. The crack broke open completely, and, from the darkness, a smooth black surface appeared. Metal. Perfect. Unbroken. Ancient, but not damaged. The structure kept rising. Slow. Heavy. Impossible. Ralvek stared at it, his heart beating faster. "This is not a ruin," he said quietly. The metal surface expanded, revealing more of its shape. Curved edges, sharp lines. It was not a building. It was not part of the city. It was something else, something hidden, something waiting. The blue light spread across its surface, like veins waking up. A deep sound filled the air, not loud but powerful, like a giant machine coming back to life. Above them, in orbit, the main ship suddenly filled with alarms. "Commander!" a voice shouted through the comm. "Energy levels are rising fast." Ralvek did not respond. He could not take his eyes off the thing in front of him. The truth was clear now. The planet was not dead. It had never been dead. It had been sleeping. And now, it was waking up. The blue light grew brighter. It moved across the black metal like veins spreading in all directions. The surface was smooth, perfect, untouched by time. Dust slid off it as if the planet itself could not hold it down anymore. The ground team stood frozen. No one spoke. No one moved. The structure kept rising. Slow at first, then faster. Ralvik stepped back, his eyes locked on it. "Fall back," he said quietly. This time no one argued. They moved toward the shuttle, but they did not take their eyes off the thing behind them. "Commander." The voice from the ship above returned, louder now, filled with urgency. "Energy readings are increasing rapidly. This is not natural. We are detecting power levels far beyond anything on record." "How deep?" Ralvik asked. There was a pause. "Unknown. But it's spreading. Whatever's down there, it's not alone." Ralvik stopped walking, "Not alone." He turned again. The structure had risen high enough now to show its true shape. It was not just a piece of metal. It was a ship, a massive one, its surface curved like a blade. Long, smooth lines ran across it, glowing with faint blue light. There were no visible weapons, no markings, no damage, just silence and power. "This was buried here?" one of the scientists whispered. "For how long?" another asked. No one had an answer. Then the sound came again, deeper this time, stronger. It was not just a vibration now. It was a pulse. The air itself seemed to shake. The team reached the shuttle ramp. "Move," the pilot shouted. They rushed inside. Ralvik was the last to enter. He looked back one final time. The ship had stopped rising. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the blue light turned white. A sharp glow spread across the surface. Lines of energy lit up in perfect patterns. And suddenly, the ground around it cracked again, more lines, more fractures across the entire area. "No," Ralvik whispered. "This is not just one." High above, on the Orion ship, alarms filled the bridge. Red lights flashed, screens overloaded with data. "Commander, we have multiple energy spikes." "Locations?" An officer shouted. "Everywhere! Across the planet!" The main display changed. Points of light began to appear across the surface of XK-117. 110, hundreds, then thousands, each one glowing brighter, each one growing. "What is happening?" someone said in fear. The answer came from the sensors. "They're all activating." The shuttle lifted off just as the ground below collapsed again. From the air, the view was worse, far worse. Across the ruined city, more black structures were rising, some smaller, some even larger than the first, each one breaking, through the surface like it had been waiting for this moment. Dust storms formed around them. The sky darkened. "Get us out of here," Ralvik ordered. The shuttle shot upward, but even as they climbed higher, the view only became more terrifying. The entire planet was changing. Cracks spread like a web across continents, mountains shifted, oceans trembled, and everywhere. "Light blue, white alive, Commander," the pilot said slowly. "This planet? It's waking up." Ralvik did not answer. He was watching something else. The first ship, the one they had seen rise. Its engines were now glowing, bright, powerful, and then it moved. Not upward, not yet, but it shifted, like it was adjusting itself, like it was preparing. Energy surge detected. The ship above reported. "Levels?" Ralvik asked. "Off the charts. We cannot measure it." The shuttle finally broke through the atmosphere. Space opened around them, but the danger did not stay below. It followed. From orbit, the full truth was visible. The planet was no longer silent. It was alive with movement. Thousands of massive shapes were rising from beneath the surface. Ships, all of them. Different sizes, different designs, but all sharing the same dark metal and the same glowing energy. "This is impossible," one officer on the main ship whispered. "No civilization could build this." "No," Ralvik said quietly as he entered the bridge again. "They didn't build it now." Everyone looked at him. "They built it long ago." The first ship reached orbit. It moved slowly, smoothly, like it had never been buried at all. No hesitation, no error, just perfect motion. It stopped in space. For a moment. Nothing happened. Then its engines flared. A deep, silent flash of light, and it disappeared. Gone. "Jump detected," an officer shouted. It entered faster than light travel. Silence filled the bridge. Then, another ship reached orbit, then another, and another, each one repeating the same process. "Rise. Pause, jump, rise, pause, jump. They're leaving," someone said. "No," Ralvik replied. His voice was cold now. "They're deploying." Suddenly, the main screen flickered. A signal appeared, weak at first, then stronger. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission." "From where?" The officer hesitated. "From the planet," Ralvik stepped closer. "Play it." The speakers came alive with static. Crackling noise filled the air. Then, a sound. Not random. Not broken, yea. Pattern, slow, deliberate. Like something trying to speak. "Can you translate it?" Ralvik asked. "Working on it." The signal repeated, again and again, each time clearer, each time stronger. Then, the system reacted. Translation. "Match found," the computer announced. Everyone leaned forward. Ralvik's eyes narrowed. "What language?" The officer looked at the screen. His face changed. Shock, confusion, fear. "It's not alien," he said slowly. Ralvik felt something cold move through him. "Then what is it?" The officer swallowed. "It's human." Silence. Heavy. Unbelievable. "But humans are extinct," someone said. Ralvik stared at the screen. At the endless ships rising from the dead world. "To you?" The signal repeating again and again. "No," he said quietly. "They're not below them." The planet continued to open. More ships, more light, more power. What they thought was a grave was never a grave. It was a vault, a hidden force, a sleeping army. And now, it was fully awake, and the message from the planet repeated one more time. Clearer than, ever stronger than before. Not a warning, not a greeting, but something far more dangerous. A signal to the stars humanity was back. The silence in the Orion bridge did not last. It broke slowly, like glass under pressure. Screens kept flashing the same impossible readings. Ships were still rising from XK-117, one after another, filling space with dark shapes and blue light. No one spoke at first because no one knew what to say. Then the alarms returned. "More ships detected," a technician shouted. "They are spreading out." "Across what range?" another asked. The answer came fast. "Everywhere. They are forming a network. They are not just launching. They are organizing." Ralvik stood still in the center of the bridge. His eyes did not leave the main display. Dozens of human ships had already disappeared into faster-than-light jumps. Others were still rising from the planet below like it had no end. It was not chaos. It was control. And that was worse. "Commander," a young officer said carefully, "what if this is some old automated defense system? Something left behind by a dead species?" Ralvek shook his head slowly. "No defense system builds this many ships," he said. "And no system stays silent for this long." The officer looked down. No one argued. Outside the viewport, another massive ship cleared the atmosphere. Its hull reflected the distant stars like a mirror of darkness. It paused for a moment, hovering in perfect balance, then it turned, not randomly, directly toward the Orion ship. "Sir," someone whispered, "it's looking at us." The ship did not fire. It did not move closer. It simply stayed there, watching. And that was enough to make the entire bridge feel smaller. Inside the human fleet, everything was different. There was no noise between ships, no chatter, no confusion, just silent coordination across thousands of vessels that had been asleep for an unknown time. Deep inside one of the leading ships, systems began to fully activate. Old systems, very old. They had not been used in centuries. A central core lit up, showing lines of data flowing like rivers of light. Across it, a single symbol appeared repeatedly. Not a language of today's galaxy, not Orion code human. The system spoke in a calm, mechanical voice. Fleet synchronization. Complete. Territory scan. Hostile observers. Detected. Directive status active. Then, another line appeared. Primary. Directive confirmed. No one on the Orion ship understood what that meant. But the feeling of danger increased. Back on the bridge, Ralvek finally turned away from the screen. "Open communication," he ordered. "With who?" someone asked. "Them." There was hesitation. "Commander, we don't know their language. And we don't know if they will respond peacefully." Ralvek's voice was steady. "They already responded," he said. "They answered with ships. The communication channel opened. Static filled the bridge. Then, a voice. Not loud, not emotional, just, "Come to come, this system is under observation." The bridge froze. The translation was instant. Human. Language, clear, precise. A technician quickly responded through the channel. "This is Orion Union vessel. We mean no hostility. Identify yourselves." A pause followed, longer than before. Then the voice returned. "You entered a sealed zone." Ralvek stepped forward. "Sealed by who?" he asked directly. The answer came after a short silence. "By us." The word hung in the air. Not a threat. A fact. In orbit, the human ships began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. They formed patterns around the planet. Circular formations. Defensive positions. Routes that connected like invisible threads across space. It was not random. It was a grid, a system returning to life. "Commander," an officer said urgently, "they are surrounding us." "We are not their target," Ralvek replied. The officer turned. "Then what are they doing?" Ralvek looked at the fleet forming outside. "I think," he said slowly, "we are just the ones who woke them up." The communication channel opened again. The human voice returned. This system was designated as a containment vault. Ralvek's eyes narrowed. "Containment for what?" There was a delay, then the answer came. "Extinction event class threat." A chill moved across the bridge. One of the officers whispered, "That's not a species. That's a warning category." Ralvek ignored him. "Where are the humans?" he asked. A pause. Longer this time. Then, "We are here." The bridge fell completely silent. Outside, the fleet moved again, and for the first time, every Orion sensor realized something terrifying. The ships were not just surrounding them, they were protecting something. The planet below. The dead world, the vault, far beneath XK-117's surface, deeper than any scan had reached. Another core activated. This one was different. Stronger. Older. It did not rise like the others. It awakened in place. Inside a massive underground chamber, light filled the darkness. Structures that had been dormant for centuries began to unfold like mechanical organs. And at the center of it all, a final system came online. A message archive. Not for the Orion Union, not for the galaxy, but for the future. The system began broadcasting across all human ships, simultaneously. Memory protocol restored. History. Locked file accessed. Outside. Every human ship paused for a fraction of a second, like they were listening. The Orion crew noticed it too. "What's happening?" someone asked. Ralvik did not answer. He was watching the human fleet. For the first time, something changed. The silence between them felt heavier. Not peaceful, not calm, but final. Then the voice returned once more. But this time, it was different. Not a warning, not a statement. A truth. "You were not meant to find this place." Ralvik's grip tightened. "Then why are you awake?" he asked. The answer came instantly because of what is coming back. The human fleet began to accelerate outward, not attacking, not retreating, expanding, like a net being cast across the galaxy. One last transmission reached the Orion. "Bridge short, clear, unchangeable. You did not awaken a weapon. You awakened a shield." And then the connection ended all at once. The silence returned, but nothing felt quiet anymore, because now they understood the dead planet was never dead. The sleeping Armada was never asleep without reason, and whatever it had been built to contain was still out there waiting. The moment the transmission cut off, the Orion bridge did not move. No one spoke. Even the alarms felt quieter now, as if the ship itself was afraid to make noise. Outside the viewport, the human fleet continued its silent expansion into space. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation, forming layers around XK-117 like an invisible shield. Ralvik stood still, staring at the empty communication screen. "A shield," he repeated softly. One of the officers finally broke the silence. "Commander!" "Against what?" No answer came. Because no one had one. Then the sensors changed again. A new reading appeared, far outside the system. At first, it was just a small distortion in space. A ripple in the fabric of the galaxy. Then another, and another. "Gravitational anomaly detected," a technician said. His voice was tight. "Multiple sources. Expanding fast." Ralvik turned slowly. "Show me." The main screen zoomed out far beyond the human fleet. Space itself was bending. Not naturally, not randomly. Something was coming, and it was moving toward them. "Identify origin," Ralvik ordered. The technician's fingers moved quickly over the console. "Unknown signature. It does not match any known empire, species, or classification." "Speed?" someone asked. The answer came immediately, faster than anything we can track. The bridge grew colder. Outside, the human ships reacted instantly. Not panic, not confusion, action. Entire formations shifted in real time. Defensive layers expanded. Outer ships moved forward like they had been waiting for this moment since their activation. The shield was forming for a reason. Ralvik felt it then. Pattern. The humans had not been preparing for the Orion Union. They had been preparing for something else, something far worse, deep inside the human fleet. Command systems synchronized again. Central voice activated across all vessels. Anomaly. Confirmed. Containment breach probability. High. Protocol Omega remains active. Omega, the word appeared on every human ship. Simultaneously, no explanation, no translation needed. Even the Orion crew could feel its weight. One officer whispered, "What is Omega Protocol?" Ralvik did not take his eyes off the screen. "I think we are about to find out." The anomaly expanded closer. Now it was visible even without sensors. Space itself was tearing in places, like fabric being pulled apart. Dark structures appeared within the distortion. Not ships, not natural formations, something else, something that did not belong in normal space. The human fleet tightened its formation. Then, the first contact occurred. A wave of energy swept through the edge of the system. It did not destroy anything. It tested. The human shield absorbed it. Completely, no damage, no reaction, just silence. Then, the second wave came, stronger. Still, nothing. The Orion crew watched in disbelief. Those shields, a technician said slowly, they are not defensive. They are adaptive. They are learning the attack in real time. Ralvik narrowed his eyes. They are not learning, he said. They already know. The anomaly slowed, then stabilized, and from within it, something emerged, a massive structure, impossible in size. It was not a ship in any normal sense. It was layered with unknown geometry, shifting even as it moved. Its surface seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. It did not travel like ships, it unfolded into space. The Orion sensors failed for a moment, then returned. Classification? Someone asked nervously. The system struggled. Finally, it answered. Unregistered extinction class entity. Silence followed. Even the human fleet stopped, moving, not in fear, but recognition. The Omega protocol activated again. All units confirm. Threat type, the human. Command voice said. Every ship responded at once. One word confirmed. Ralvik's hands tightened on the railing in front of him. So this is it, he whispered. One officer looked at him. Commander, what is it? Ralvik did not answer immediately. He watched the massive entity fully emerge from the distortion. It was not alive in a normal sense. It was something that erased normal senses. Reality bent around it slightly. Like space itself struggled to define its shape. Then Ralvik spoke. I think, he said slowly, this is what they were built to stop. The human fleet moved, not backward, not away, forward. Every ship advanced at once, forming a barrier between XK-117 and the entity. The shield was complete now, layered, deep, unbreakable in structure. The entity reacted. A pulse of energy swept outward. This time, the human fleet responded. All ships released synchronized energy fields. The two forces collided. Space lit up in silence. No explosion sound traveled through vacuum, but the visuals were enough to understand the scale. Entire regions of space bent under pressure. Stars flickered in the distance. The Orion crew held their breath. Commander, someone said, they are holding it back. Ralvik nodded slowly. Yes, he said, not fighting it, a pause containing it. Inside the human command network, a final message activated. It broadcast across every ship and accidentally leaked into Orion channels as well. A memory file, very old images appeared on the screen. Human cities, human skies, human ships, and then destruction. Not of one world, but many. A voice accompanied the images. Tired final. If this message is active, then containment has failed once. 4. The Orion crew froze. Ralvik's expression changed slightly, not fear, understanding. The message continued. We are not the first shield. We are the last. The entity outside pushed. Harder. The human fleet responded instantly, but now, small cracks appeared in the formation. Not failure. Strain. Even the shield had limits. Energy reserves dropping. A technician reported. They are sustaining something enormous. Ralvik watched carefully. They are holding back something that cannot be killed, he said quietly. The officer looked at him. Then how do you stop it? Ralvik did not answer because deep down, he already knew the answer. You don't stop it, you contain it forever. The human fleet began to shift again, not retreating, not attacking, repositioning, a new formation. Formed, larger, stronger, more complex, and at the center of it, XK-117, the sleeping planet. The Volta, the Armada, the shield, everything, now revealed its purpose. Ralvik finally spoke again. They were never asleep, he said. They were waiting for this. Outside the viewport, the human ships locked into final positions. The entity pushed again, and the shield held, for now. But everyone in the Orion bridge understood one thing clearly. This was not the end of the battle. It was the beginning of the reason the galaxy had never been safe in the first place. The battle did not end. It changed. The space around XK-117 had become something no one in the Orion Union had ever seen before. It was no longer empty. It was layered with structures of light, shields within shields, fleets within fleets. The human armada had turned the entire system into a living barrier, and still the entity outside pressed closer. It did not rush. It did not rage. It simply existed and moved forward. Slowly, unstoppably. On the Orion bridge, every screen showed the same thing now. Containment pressure rising. The human fleet was still holding, but not easily. Every second looked like a silent war between physics and something older than physics itself. Ralvek stood in the center of the bridge, unmoving. His eyes followed every shift in the battle lines outside. "Commander," a technician said nervously, "their outer shield layers are failing in Sector 12. Before anyone could react, the human fleet adjusted. Instantly, ships in the damaged sector rotated into position, replacing broken lines with fresh energy grids. The gap closed as if it had never existed. Ralvek's expression tightened. "They are not reacting," he said quietly. "They are predicting." The officer beside him frowned. "Predicting what?" Ralvek did not answer immediately. His eyes stayed on the human formation. "They already know every outcome," he said at last. "That's why they don't panic." Outside, the entity pushed harder again. This time the pressure was different. Space itself began to distort more violently. The edge of the containment field flickered. Light bent in strange directions. Even distant stars seemed to shift slightly out of place. Then, for the first time, the human fleet responded with something new. A pulse. Not defensive. Not blocking. Expanding. From the core of the formation, a wave of structured energy moved outward in perfect symmetry. It did not attack the entity. Instead, it reinforced reality itself, like stitching broken space back together. The Orion sensors struggled to process it. "What is that?" someone whispered. A scientist on board checked his readings again and again. "It's stabilizing space-time around the impact zone," he said slowly. "They are repairing reality while fighting." Silence followed. Even Ralvek looked slightly shaken. "They are not just soldiers," he said quietly. "They are maintenance systems for existence itself." Inside the human network, the Omega protocol expanded further. New data streams opened across every ship. More memory fragments returned, older than the previous ones. This time, images were not just of Earth, they showed multiple worlds, different skies, different civilizations, all ending the same way, a collapse, a rupture, thing that should not exist entering normal space and always. Human ships responding, always containment, never victory, only delay. The Orion crew watched in silence as the truth unfolded across their screens. One officer finally spoke. "So, this has happened before?" Ralvek nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "Many times," a pause, "and every time they lose." Ralvek looked at the battlefield outside. "No," he said softly. "They survive." The entity made another move. This one was different. Instead of pushing forward, it split. Space fractured into multiple distortions. Smaller versions of itself began forming around the system, like echoes of the main threat spreading outward. The Orion sensors went wild. Multiple breach points detected. "They are multiplying," someone shouted. But the human fleet reacted instantly again. New formations formed on the outer edges of the system. Subfleets detached from the main shield and moved toward each new breach point. They were not outnumbered. They were divided on purpose. Ralvek realized it. They anticipated splitting attacks, he said. They prepared for everything. The battle expanded, not across space, across structure. Each human ship now fought its own containment zone. Each section of the fleet operated independently but perfectly synchronized. From the Orion perspective, it looked impossible, too coordinated, too precise, too calm. Even as energy levels dropped, the human fleet showed no sign of hesitation. "Commander," a technician said quietly, "they are using historical data to predict future attack patterns. But the entity is adapting faster than any recorded system." Ralvek nodded. "Yes," he said, "because it is not a system." He paused. "It's something that learned how to erase systems." The central containment field shook. For the first time, a visible crack appeared in space near XK-117. A thin fracture, barely noticeable, but real. The Orion bridge fell silent. Then the human fleet reacted again. But this time, not because they were failing, because they were deciding. Inside the network, a new command activated. Every ship received it. Even the Orion intercepts picked it up partially. A single directive. Final layer authorized. Ralvek read it silently. What does that mean? Someone asked. He did not answer. Because he understood. The human fleet began to change formation again. But this time, it was not defensive. It was structural. Ships moved into positions that formed a massive geometric pattern across the system. Lines of energy connected them. Not shields anymore, framework. A cage, a prison. At the center of it all was XK-117, the sleeping planet, still. Glowing faintly beneath its surface, still alive, still. The anchor, the entity outside, reacted violently for the first time. It surged. Forward, not testing, not probing, attacking. The containment field bent. Sharply. Cracks widened. The Orion crew braced themselves. This is it, someone whispered. But the human fleet did not break. Instead, every ship responded in unison, a final synchronized pulse. Not energy, not weapon, a lock. Space around the entity tightened instantly. The distortion slowed, then stalled, then froze. For a moment, everything stopped, even light, even motion, even time itself seemed to hesitate. Ralvek's eyes widened slightly. They did it, he said. One officer turned. Did what? Ralvek kept watching. They didn't destroy it, he said. They locked it in place. The silence that followed was heavier than the battle itself. The entity remained suspended in space, trapped in a structure of human design. The containment grid held, but it was visibly strained. The Orion sensors showed massive energy consumption across the fleet. They were not winning, they were maintaining. The human voice returned one last time across all channels. Calm, fading, but certain. Containment. Stabilized. Outer breach. Neutralized. Omega status. Ongoing. Then, a pause, longer than before, finally. Do not approach the vault. The transmission ended. The Orion bridge remained silent. Outside, the human fleet stayed in formation, holding, waiting, guarding. Ralvek finally spoke. They are not fighting a war, he said. Everyone looked at him. They are doing a job that never ends. The officer beside him swallowed. And if they fail? Ralvek looked at XK-117 at the sleeping world, at the endless shield of ships, at the frozen horror beyond it. If they fail, he said quietly, the galaxy stops being safe, in a way we can't even imagine. And for the first time since arriving at the dead planet, no one disagreed. The containment field held, but it did not feel like victory. It felt like pressure, a constant, endless pressure pushing against everything the human fleet had built. The frozen entity outside XK-117 remained locked in place, suspended in a cage of light and geometry. Yet even frozen, it was not harmless. The distortion around it kept trying to spread, like reality itself had been injured and refused to heal. Inside the Orion bridge, the tension did not ease. If anything, it grew worse. Containment stability at 62%, a technician reported. A pause, dropping slowly. Ralvek did not respond immediately. His eyes stayed on the central display. The human fleet was still holding position, but their movements were no longer smooth. Adjustments were happening constantly, like a body under strain trying not to collapse. They are weakening, someone said quietly. Ralvek shook his head. No, he replied, they are balancing. Oh. Outside, the human formation shifted again. Ships rotated into new positions without hesitation. Entire sections of the fleet swapped roles in seconds. What had been outer shield units moved inward. Inner support ships took pressure roles. Everything adjusted like a single organism adapting to injury. No panic, no delay, only response. The Orion sensors struggled to keep up. How can they coordinate this fast? An officer asked. Even our fastest systems would take minutes for this level of restructuring. Ralvek's eyes narrowed slightly. Because they are not coordinating, he said. They are connected. Oh. A sudden spike appeared on the sensors. The frozen entity had changed. Not escaped. Not moved. But it reacted. Inside the containment cage, something deep within it pulsed. A ripple passed through its structure, and for the first time, the frozen distortion showed instability. The containment field held, But it did not feel like victory. It felt like pressure. A constant, endless pressure pushing against everything the human fleet had built. The frozen entity outside XK-117 remained locked in place, suspended in a cage of light and geometry. Yet even frozen, it was not harmless. The distortion around it kept trying to spread. Like reality itself had been injured and refused to heal. Inside the Orion bridge, the tension did not ease. If anything, it grew worse. Containment stability at 62%, a technician reported. A pause. Dropping slowly. Ralvek did not respond immediately. His eyes stayed on the central display. The human fleet was still holding position, but their movements were no longer smooth. Adjustments were happening constantly, like a body under strain trying not to collapse. "They are weakening," someone said quietly. Ralvik shook his head. "No," he replied, "they are balancing." Oh. Outside, the human formation shifted again. Ships rotated into new positions without hesitation. Entire sections of the fleet swapped roles in seconds. What had been outer shield units moved inward. Inner support ships took pressure roles. Everything adjusted like a single organism adapting to injury. No panic, no delay, only response. The Orion sensors struggled to keep up. "How can they coordinate this fast?" an officer asked. "Even our fastest systems would take minutes for this level of restructuring." Ralvik's eyes narrowed slightly. "Because they are not coordinating," he said. "They are connected." Oh. A sudden spike appeared on the sensors. The frozen entity had changed. Not escaped, not moved, but it reacted. Inside the containment cage, something deep within it pulsed. A ripple passed through its structure, and for the first time, the frozen distortion showed instability. But the strain on the human fleet increased dramatically. Multiple ships showed critical warnings. Structural stress increasing. Reactor overload in 3 sectors. The Orion crew watched in silence. They were not just witnessing a battle. They were watching endurance. Ralvik finally spoke again. "They are not trying to kill it," he said. The officer beside him looked confused. "Then what are they doing?" Ralvik's voice lowered slightly. "They are trying to make sure it never moves again." Outside, the containment structure stabilized again. Barley. The entity remained frozen, but now it was pressing from within more aggressively. The cage held, but it was visibly strained, like glass under constant pressure. And then something unexpected happened. A signal appeared. Not from the entity, from inside the human network. A deep internal channel activated. The Orion system barely caught it, but enough fragments were translated. "Core memory breach detected. Primary archive accessed. Directive conflict identified." Ralvik frowned. "What does that mean?" The technician shook his head. "I don't know, but something inside their system is changing." Inside the human fleet, all ships briefly paused. Just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough for Orion sensors to notice. It was not hesitation, it was recognition, as if something long buried inside their system had just woken up. Then the fleet resumed, but differently. The formations were now slightly altered, more precise, more rigid. The frozen entity pulsed again. And this time the human response came instantly, but not from all ships, from only a fraction of them. The rest held position, watching, waiting. "Why are only some ships responding?" someone asked. Ralvik's eyes narrowed. "Because they are splitting roles," he said quietly. "Some contain, some observe, some prepare." "Prepare for what?" the officer asked. Ralvik did not answer, because now he could see it. The structure was not just containment anymore. It was something else. A system with multiple purposes, and one of those purposes had not been activated yet. The Orion sensors suddenly detected a deep signal from XK-117 itself, not from the ships, from the planet. A final core layer activating far below the surface. A voice returned across all channels again. But this time it was different. Slower, heavier, older. "The vault integrity is nearing threshold." Ralvik's expression changed. "This is not the end of the containment cycle," he said quietly. "This is the transition." The officer looked at him. "Transition to what?" Ralvik stared at the frozen entity outside, then at the human fleet holding everything together, and finally at the sleeping world below. "I think," he said slowly, "we are about to find out why they built all of this in the first place." And for the first time since the Armada awakened, even the humans seemed uncertain of what came next.